Winners, Losers, and What to Do When You Win the Lottery. And this is your second book. You did a book about Ernie Fletcher as well.
I did.
And how was it different? I mean, obviously, you're with that book, it's one subject, whereas this is all over the place.
It's several subjects, and the Fletcher book was extremely successful for me as far as commercially, because I have to thank Governor Fletcher for that. I wrote it before he got indicted, and then before he drew. Since he had an election where he had two primary opponents, and all those people bought books, and all his supporters bought books. Mm-hmm. 7 people in the Democratic primary, they all bought books, and he had a general election. And so now once the election ended and he lost, he left the governor's mansion. I mean, I have about 50 books left at my home. If you want one, come by. I'll give you one. I mean, there's like once that book, it was zooming up. It was very high on the Amazon charts, and now it's down to about 3 million or something. Because so writing about one subject, once that subject left the media, that was the end of my. And at the time, I was appearing regularly on Comment on Kentucky on KET, and I was doing a lot more political writing. When I started writing for Huffington Post, they picked me up during the economic crisis, and really at that point, and that's been my background anyway. I mean, that was always so I went back to my roots more or less of writing pretty much all about finance, and I found that the subject of not just lottery winners, but people running through big money in general seems to fascinate people.
It does, yeah. And you devote a big part of the book also talking about, your personal history with your father as a professional gambler. But the book is entitled "The Son of a Gambler." Now, was your father's father?
Yeah, we don't know that much about him because he died when my father was 7. We didn't know that he had the same saloon gambler background as my dad, and so kind of cutesy on the Jimmy Buffett thing.
Okay.
And so, so people ask me about that, but it's a lot more about Dad than it is about anything else. And Dad was locally famous in the Cincinnati area, and so we have a couple chapters about local celebrities in that area. And one, for example, I always thought was interesting was Larry Flynt. And my father gave Larry Flynt one of his very first jobs when he moved up from Salyersville and up in Newport. And I write about this in the book. We're sitting there one day, and Flynt had gotten thrown in jail in Cincinnati for some kind of drunken public thing or whatever. And so he called Dad to bail him out, and he had enough money for Flynt, but not for his chauffeur. And so we're waiting and Flynt lived in Columbus at the time, so we're waiting for a couple hours for somebody to drive. This is before ATMs and all that kind of stuff. So we're waiting, and Flynt looks at Dad, and I'm like 10. I guess I'm about 12. And he looks at Dad, and he says, "I want to start a magazine." I said, "Playboy's too upscale. I want to start a blue-collar Playboy magazine. It's going to be called Hustler, and I'm going to have Hustler clubs, and it's going to be..." Well, he laid it all out there. And,
sure.
And about a year later, there he was. So now you may like or dislike or whatever with Larry, but that was a fascinating experience to see somebody, an entrepreneurial dream develop right there in front of you. And he hadn't done anything at that point, but he laid it all out how he's going to do it. He had it all thought through to the finish line.
Did you see the movie, The People vs. Larry Flynt?
Saw the movie, read the book, and became pretty interested in it. I haven't seen Flynt since I was a child, but Dad saw him. My dad died in '93, and Dad was in Los Angeles and saw him probably a couple years before he died. So it was after Flynt had been shot. And,
sure.
And went out and visited him, but they all, that was one of those situations where Flynt always appreciated that Dad helped him get started, and it was a gambling job. It wasn't Dad wasn't really all that crazy about the pornography business.
Well, no, but it certainly worked for Larry Flynt.
It did. It did. I mean, and that was part of it. He was willing to do. It's like in the movie The Usual Suspects. He said, "You're willing to do what the other guy won't do," and that's what Larry Flynt was willing to put out stuff that I really don't want in my house, but there's an audience out there for it.
So you have lots of other things in here besides the stories about your father and about gambling and these different characters that he was involved with, but you also have brushes with Richard and Famous of your own with different people, everybody from Al Gore to the Scissor Sisters.
Oh yeah, let me talk about the Scissor Sisters, since that's the local connection.
Yeah,
here.
we do play the Scissor Sisters. Baby Daddy is the bass player, I guess.
Yeah, Baby Daddy, whose real name is Scott Hoffman, AKA Scott Hoffman. One of the things I write in there, and I always thought this was something, is the first, in fact, the only first bar mitzvah I was ever invited to was for Scott Hoffman. His parents, Dr. Phil and Nancy Hoffman, are dear friends of mine. Phil's my personal physician, has been for many years. Nancy worked with me, and I was one of Al Gore's state coordinators for Kentucky when he ran for president in 1988, and Nancy worked with me in that campaign, so we became friends. So I watched Scott and the other two brothers grow up, and all of a sudden he's a huge worldwide star. So, and I was the second person in the United States, actually the first one was Rich Copley here at the Herald Leader, and to write about the Scissor Sisters, and got to have dinner with them when they were in town and meet all the band, and hang out with them and stay in touch. And I've written about them numerous times, and became a big fan of their music. And
yeah, it's very good.
They're supposed to have a new album coming out.
I was curious about that. I think they have two, right?
Yeah.
And so,
from what I understood, it's soon. And they sold 6 million albums in England a couple years ago. And
yeah, they may be bigger in Europe than they are here, but
far bigger. And that's one of the reasons we haven't. Music being so segmented these days, it's harder to pick up an audience in the United States. And do you go from playing, like they played the Dame when they were here, and so they were playing 100,000 seat arenas in England when they left. So it's hard to go from 100,000 seat arena. They're big in Australia. They've written several songs for Kylie, as far as and that's it. They've written Scott in particular, because he's written and produced a lot of other hits for other people. He's more of a Brian Wilson type, where he's kind of behind the scenes doing a lot of different things. So.
Well, I hope they get to make it back through town again.
I do too.
There are a few more places to play nowadays, so they would be able to do that. Don McNay is our guest. His book is entitled Son of a Gambler, Winners, Losers, and What to Do When You Win the Lottery. And you'll be doing a book signing on Sunday, April 25th at Joseph Beth Booksellers. It's from 2 to 4 p.m., and Don will be there. He'll be glad to sign your book and speak with you if you can make it out to Joseph Beth Booksellers. You've done book signings there before?
Yeah, I've done the Fletcher book, and so actually I've done 3. This will be my 3rd time there.
You actually are in a lot of different places, and I won't give out all of the places, but you can go to Don's website. He's got lots of different signings across Kentucky, through northern Kentucky and central Kentucky.
Yeah, this is a hardcore book tour. I have Mary Ashley Burton, who's producing the tour, has got us just about, you name the city.
She got you booked.
Yeah, we're like the George Thurgood, 50 places in 50 days, and one of those things.
Well, I guess I should mention, because we have talked about it a little bit, the fact that you put so much music in the book. I remember Stephen King used to use a lot of music quotes to open his chapters. Obviously, he's a big music fan and plays a little guitar. Are you a musician yourself? Can you play?
It's funny. I just reacquired my mother died a couple years ago, and I just reacquired the family piano. And it's funny because my piano teacher was a Neil Young fanatic, so the only songs I know are Neil Young songs. But there seem to be kind of, after the gold rush back, I seem to be able to get.
That's fun.
It is, and I love music, and I love rock and roll, and I love just any kind of popular music, and I'm almost impossible to beat in a 70s trivia quiz. Just about any genre except for classical and really 60s. Anything before, somewhere in the late 80s, I've lost that particular. I can't tell you every song on the top 100. But I